So I wanted to bring you a quick rundown of some of the latest news coming out of E3 from Sony. We're going to begin with Naughty Dog announcing that Uncharted 4 will be in 30 frames per second for the campaign. They do say that they are planning on 60 frames per second for the multiplayer. So of course it would have been nice to have 60 on both, but 1080p, you know, has been such an important arguing factor for some people that seems to be the most important standard there. And of course we did see a great level of detail, you know, in the Uncharted 4 demo. So regardless, I'm sure it's going to play great, I'm sure it's going to look great, but it would have been nice to be able to hit that, you know, first goal of them achieving 60 frames per second. When it comes to Shenmue 3, a lot of people were upset in my last video because of the way that I described Sony standing on stage, launching a Kickstarter, asking for donations to make this game. And a lot of people are repeating the same statement that they've heard in other forums or, you know, reading on GAF or whatever, where they say, this is just Sony gauging interest to see how many people are interested in the game. Look, I mean, let's be real here. If you want to gauge interest, what does Sony or Microsoft usually do to gauge interest? They put out a survey, you put out a poll. You don't ask for donations just to gauge interest. And the same thing goes for this. This is not just to gauge your interest. This is to make the game work. This is to get this game funded. And this isn't just my opinion. This isn't me saying this. Polygon has actually done a few interviews with the developers and also with Sony themselves, and they're asking for charity to literally build the game. So, and they also mentioned that the size of the game is going to be dependent upon how much money they get from things like this Kickstarter. So here's a quote from Yoshida. He says, quote, "This is not a Sega project. They are doing this as an indie studio, and Yu has a small team. It's indie development, which is why he chose Kickstarter to seek funding. Once it's successful, Sony's going to give a lot of support to the game, including financial support. That's no different than what we've done with other games like Sports Friends." In terms of final development cost, I think Suzuki is being flexible depending upon the funds available. I don't think he's setting this up to be a massive open world game. I think he's waiting for Kickstarter to end and then see. So what he's saying is that if enough charity comes in, then Sony's going to put some money behind it if it's successful, like they did with Sports Friends. And don't take this the wrong way, but what the hell was Sports Friends? And then finally, Yoshida was asked about Microsoft's announcement that backwards compatibility was coming to the Xbox One. He said he was interested in seeing the list of titles that are going to be available. And I was watching one of the Xbox Daily briefings, and they were talking about, or talking with some of the people who actually made this happen. And they said basically it's pretty easy to port games over. Really, they just need the publisher's permission in order to do so, and that it actually emulates the 360. So while you're playing one of those games, you can pull up the dashboard and actually still see the 360 dashboard. And they do say by the end of the year they plan on having 100 titles, and they also have a page up where you can go vote for the games that you want to be sure are going to be on there. But I would imagine that the list is going to be pretty large by the time this is all said and done. As far as PlayStation is concerned, though, Yoshida said the announcement didn't change anything and that they're not interested or trying to bring backwards compatibility to the PS4. Instead, he mentioned how surprisingly well PS Now worked as far as allowing players to play older games on the new system. PS Now, of course, is a streaming service, so you're not running it natively, and it's also hella expensive to play a lot of those games. And even if you own those games on the previous system, if you played them on PS3, you own those games, they're sitting at your house, you still have to pay full price in order to play them on your PS4. So from a business standpoint, we know that PS Now took a lot of investment. We know Sony paid a good, pretty penny for that. So allowing games or allowing gamers, to play those old games on the new system really doesn't do anything to help line Sony's pocketbook, and would actually only hurt them in the long run, because that means less people investing in PS Now. And Microsoft, on the other hand, really has nothing to lose, and we know that they have plenty of change laying around, and it'll actually bring more sales to the Xbox One in the long run, and actually probably also help sell a few more 360 games in the process. Yoshida said that it must be pretty hard to accomplish this, and he mentioned that a few times, and it probably is, considering how many devs talked about how difficult it was, figuring out the PlayStation 3 architecture. But they did mention that Microsoft put like 2 or 3 guys in a room that figured it out in a few weeks and got it up and running on the Xbox One. So for those of you hoping that competition would make Sony step up and try to bring backwards compatibility over the PS4, the short answer is don't hold your breath. If you want to read these stories and more, links down in the description box. Also check out VGN. Post below, are you disappointed that backwards compatibility isn't coming to the PS4? And what do you think about the Shenmue statements made? That does it for me, the Red Dragon. I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.
Are you listening? Damn.